recently launched what we call the She Is Bonafide campaign with Mrs. South Africa to showcase that Mrs. South Africa ladies are winners, finalists, and entrants, are all beautiful, they're well groomed, but they're real women. They are wives, they are successful businesswomen, in some cases they're mothers, and they're really just real women, you know, doing it all, doing the school run, cooking for their families, but also owning the boardroom. So we're looking for someone that's the best version of themselves. They don't necessarily have to be the most beautiful, but they need to be an all-rounder, someone that's well-spoken, intelligent, well-groomed, and the best, absolute best version of herself. Due to the fabulous demand we've been getting about entries for 2015, we've decided to open it rather earlier than later. We were only going to open entries next year. That's usually the process we follow, but this year we are opening it the 1st of November. That is also just before Sarah Kate, our reigning Mrs. South Africa, is leaving for Mrs. World. So ladies, please diarise and remember this date. On 1 November 2014, we will open entries for next year. You can enter Mrs. South Africa by visiting our website, mrssouthafrica.coza, where you will be able to find an online entry form. But it's very important to not only register online, but to follow up your entry by emailing your photos to our office manager, Candice Version, at info@mrssouthafrica.coza. Unfortunately, your entry won't be considered if you haven't paid the entry fee of 570 Rand into our bank account, so make sure you just follow all the right procedures, send all your information along with your entry fee and proof of payments. But you'll be able to find all the details online, and you can also follow us on Twitter at Mrs. SA Pageants for regular updates, as well as on our Facebook page, Mrs. South Africa. So we get asked a lot who can enter Mrs. South Africa. You just need to be between the ages of 25 and 50 and obviously legally married and a South African citizen. It's important though to be in a loving and supportive marriage, because during your journey as Mrs. South Africa, you know, it can get challenging, and even if you are crowned as Mrs. South Africa, you do need the support of your family and your husband especially. So that is definitely important. It's also just important to have a passport for should you win, you need to travel internationally, as well as a South African driver's license. Ladies, please do not send in your wedding photos. We do get that a lot, and even though we are, you know, a pageant for married ladies, and I'm sure you are very proud of your wedding photos, and they're all absolutely beautiful, this is, after all, a beauty pageant, and we do need to have professional photos that just showcase you in the best possible way. And we just need a beautiful head and shoulders photo of you, as well as a 3/4 to full-length photo wearing anything. And please make sure these photos are of just you. Our first round of judging for the semi-finalists will take place on your entry photograph. So it's important that those documents, along with the photos that you send in, are of good quality and professionally taken. Entries for Mrs. South Africa 2015 will close on the 2nd of March 2015. We will be announcing our semi-finalists straight after that on the 4th of March, so do make sure you don't miss this deadline, the 2nd of March 2015. Mrs. South Africa Pty Limited is a privately owned company. It is very much a business and a company and run as such, and therefore we do expect our semi-finalists and finalists to raise some money towards the pageant as well as towards charity throughout various stages of the competition. This will all be discussed in detail with you during our Mrs. South Africa workshops, which will take place during the month of February all over the country. We will be having workshops in Natal, in Durban, as well as in Cape Town and Bloemfontein, and we'll end off our workshops in Johannesburg. Make sure you enter these workshops and attend these workshops to learn all about Mrs. South Africa, all about the entry process, the semi-finalist process, and just going forward. Everything will be explained during this workshop. This is also very motivational and a chance to meet our current Mrs. South Africa, Sarah Kate Scott, along with some of our celebrity judges and guests. So do make sure you attend our workshops, and if you do have any other questions, you're more than welcome to email Candice at info@mrssouthafrica.co.za. The pageant's official NGO and charity is CANSA, the Cancer Association of South Africa. We've been associated with them for the past 4 years and are very proud of our work with them. In the past year, our semi-finalists and finalists raised over 400,000 Rand for cancer. You will, however, be allowed to still be involved with personal charities, but it will be expected of you in an official capacity to support our official charity, CANSA. Because we're very much known and seen as a women empowering program for married ladies all over South Africa, we do get asked, why do we still keep the swimwear section in Mrs. South Africa? The reason for that is because we have to adhere to certain international standards. Our Mrs. South Africa gets to go to Mrs. World. We've got the international licenses for Mrs. Globe as well as Mrs. Universe. These international standards, they all require you to walk on stage in swimwear. So that is why we still have the swimwear section in Mrs. South Africa and swimwear judging as an integral part. It doesn't count as much as your interview section. It only counts about 10 to 20%, but it's still important for us that you are confident in your own skin, that you are comfortable, wearing a swimsuit, and you are allowed to wear any type of swimsuit. You can wear a full piece swimsuit and you are allowed to wear a sarong or a wrap. They just want to see that you're comfortable in your own skin and confident walking in swimwear. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Mrs. SA Pageant, as well as at Mrs. SA_official, as well as on Facebook, Mrs. South Africa, our website, mrssouthafrica.coza, and we're also on Instagram, Mrs._South Africa.
We get asked so many times, what is the difference between Miss South Africa and Mrs. South Africa? And I can speak from experience because I've actually had the privilege of doing both. What I see is that Miss South Africa is a leverage to a career opportunity, where Mrs. South Africa is that you get to be a mom and a wife, and you can just bring so much more to the pageant. And we don't even like to use the word pageant. We prefer to use the word a woman empowerment program. And from my experience of this journey, it really has been that, just being inspired by women, carrying their stories and their journeys in life. And the best thing for me about Mrs. South Africa is that your past doesn't matter. Your past is what you bring to the pageant. It defines you, it shapes you, and it becomes an inspiration. And I really love that aspect about this journey. Mrs. South Africa has been such a life-changing experience for me, and I encourage you to find the next Mrs. South Africa and ask them to enter. It could be your neighbor, it could be your child's teacher, but it could be you.